pretty checked out of politics myself. I was seeing a lot of my friends deal with the daily struggles of life under a government. Okay, thank you. Of life under a government that answers to big corporations and ignores the people. Whether that's trying to get an education without ending up in debt, find a job where your boss won't exploit you, get reliable and safe transportation, or try to live your lives without your environment getting destroyed for private profit. It was easy to feel hopeless and like things could never be any other way, and I wasn't sure what kind of future I could look forward to. And I was frustrated by the lack of leaders advocating for us and focusing on the issues that really affect us in our daily lives. In 2015, when Bernie Sanders ran for president, I felt inspired and hopeful in a way that I hadn't felt in years. When it was neither convenient nor personally beneficial, Bernie Sanders was speaking the truth about what's going on in our country and what we're living through. And he reminded us that a better world truly is possible if only we stand up and fight for it together. And so this year, I knew I couldn't remain on the sidelines, and I decided to stand up and be part of this movement. You don't need... Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So you all don't need me to tell you what's at stake in this election, because so much is. Okay. Is that better? Thank you. All right. So you don't need me to tell you what's at stake in this election, because so much is at stake in this election. But I want to take a moment to think about what Bernie says when he says, not me, us. Because that's not just a slogan. No, that's how we're running this campaign. And winning this election really depends on all of us out here, because the only way that we combat money from big corporations and from the billionaires is with people. And those people are us. That's all of us that are here today in this room that have been organizing over these last couple of months. And for me, it was scary when I first realized
Bernie Sanders has earned my vote because he understands as intimately and completely as any nurse how barbaric and unsustainable our American healthcare industry is. My job as an ER nurse is to assist people through what is often the most catastrophic time of their lives. People come to the ER after devastating injuries or near-fatal medical events like car crashes, falls, heart attacks, and strokes. These traumatic situations affect not only the patient, but their loved ones as well, sometimes permanently. When speaking with patients or their families about tests and procedures that are essential to assure the patient's survival or best possible recovery, invariably I am asked by the insured and uninsured alike, what will it cost? This question should never have to be asked by a person or family in crisis. Yet I have heard it asked every shift of my career. I have seen many patients leave the ER against medical advice after deciding that the treatments or medications that may save their lives would be too expensive for their families to bear. Just as financial worries have no place in a patient's mind, profit and greed should have no place in health care. Bernie Sanders is the only candidate for president to confront the profiteering that is causing hardworking Americans to deny themselves the medical attention they need to live healthy lives. Bernie Sanders can end the financial calamities that Americans endure when they get sick or injured. Bernie Sanders will heal our unfair, inefficient, and barbaric American healthcare system. Please contact your local organizer, talk to your friends, canvass your neighborhood, vote in the caucus. I urge all of you that care about the health and happiness of your fellow Nevadans to support Bernie Sanders for president. And now, allow me to introduce the next president of the United States, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you. What a wonderful turnout. And thank you all very much for coming out this afternoon. Let me begin by thanking the Washoe tribe for allowing us to use their facility. And I just want to say, what everybody in this room knows, is the way that the United States government has treated the Native American people from day one is a shame and a disgrace. And not only are we going to change the relationship between the federal government and the Native American people, we've got an ask of them, and that is that in this moment in American history, when we have so much environmental degradation, when we are dealing with the crisis of climate change, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, we need our Native American brothers and sisters to go all over this country, and as president, that's what I will ask them, to explain sustainability to the American people and to the world. to make it clear that this generation, our time, doesn't have the right to destroy the environment in order to make huge profits for a handful of people. So I thank the Native American people for all that they have done in educating us about a proper respect for the environment. I also want to thank Andy Feldman for his remarks, and Rochelle Basson and Dorothy Dean as well. Our campaign, as I think many of you know, has a very different approach than other campaigns. Because yes, I am here to ask your support in Nevada, because we can win here in Nevada. We're asking you to do that. All right? But so are other candidates. That's not a unique idea in a presidential primary. I am asking your help to win the Democratic nomination and to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of our country. But other candidates are doing that as well. But this is what makes this campaign different, is that I am not just asking you to help me defeat Trump. I am asking you to help me transform this country. I don't want to just go back to where we were before Trump. I want us to address the incredibly major issues facing the working families of this country. And that is what this campaign is about. And this campaign is also asking you to think outside of the box, to go beyond what you hear members of Congress talking about, what you see on TV, what you read in the papers, to ask some hard questions, which we as a nation very rarely do. And let me just start off with a couple. Right now, we pride ourselves as a democracy. Well, in my view, every single day we are moving further and further away from democracy. And it is not only Trump's refusal to obey the law, his lack of knowledge about the Constitution. What is going on right now is we are seeing every day billionaires able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to help elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. That's not democracy. Democracy is one person, one vote. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you can't have elections when billionaires have so much power. When people running for president are prepared to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on campaign ads. That is not what democracy is supposed to be in this country, which is why we are going to overturn the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. It is why we are going to move toward public funding of elections. It is why we are going to establish the reality and the need that anyone in this country who is 18 years of age has the right to vote. No more voter suppression. So our goal is to create a vibrant democracy where if people disagree with each other, they do it civilly, where majority rules, where we respect the Constitution and the rule of law. Doesn't seem to me a very radical idea. But given where we are, maybe it is. All right, second issue that I want you all to think about is the economy. I hear on the TV and in the papers, the economy is just doing fantastic. Really? Could have fooled me. All right, right now, in the richest country in the history of the world, half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Right now, in America today, we have more income and wealth inequality than at any time since the 1920s. Over the last 30 years, the top 1% have seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. You got that? $21 trillion. That's real money. Bottom half of America has seen a decline in their wealth. Right now, in Nevada and all over this country, you got people working 2 or 3 jobs in order to bring in enough income to take care of their families. Right now, tonight in America, over 500,000 Americans, including 30,000 veterans, will be sleeping out on the streets or in emergency shelters. Right now in America, 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%. So I don't want to bore you with a lot of statistics, but I do want to say this, that the goal of our campaign and our administration is to create an economy and a government that work for all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. So what does it mean? This is what it means. It means that in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. It means that we understand that in Nevada and around this country, people can't make it on 8, 9, 10, 11 bucks an hour. We're going to raise the federal minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. We are going to establish equal pay for equal work. Women will not make 80 cents on the dollar. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to make it easier for workers to join unions. We have legislation in which will double union membership in America in 4 years. And we're going to pass that. Tell you what else our agenda is about. Our agenda says what everybody knows to be true, and that is that the future of our country rests with the young people. And I got a little bit tired of politicians telling us how much they love America, but somehow ignore the needs of our children. As a nation, we should be embarrassed that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We have a child care system which is in shambles. All over America, mom goes to work, dad goes to work, and it is almost impossible to find quality, affordable child care. Well, together we know what the psychologists tell us is that 0 through 4 are the most important years of intellectual and emotional development. And that is why, together, we will have universal, high-quality, affordable child care for every working-class family in this country. But it's not just child care. This is the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. And when I talk this afternoon, I want you not to forget that. If we were a poor country, we would have a different discussion. We are the richest country on earth. richest country in the history of the world. We must have the best public educational system in the world, and together we will. When we talk about changing priorities, we talk about changing our views on education. Education is what human life is about, from day one to the last day we experience on earth. And when we talk about having a great education system, we have got to respect our educators, our teachers. Think outside of the box. Go outside of what you see on the news tonight and ask yourself, how does it happen that in this great country we have teachers who are working 2 or 3 jobs in order to take care of their families? All over this country, we have experienced good teachers leaving the profession because they're not making a living. We have teachers taking money out of their own pockets in order to buy school supplies. We have school districts all over America that are cutting back on the arts, cutting back on language development. That is pretty crazy. And that is why we are going to triple funding for Title I schools. We're going to make sure that children with disabilities are able to get the care and attention they need in our public schools. And I'll tell you what else, and this is a value change. And that is to say that a nation that can pay its football players and basketball players and baseball players, give them contracts of tens of millions of dollars, you know what we can do? We can make sure that every teacher in America earns at least $60,000 a year. And what I want, this is what I want, and I'm not going to tell you it happens overnight. But when we change our value system as a nation and we appreciate education and we appreciate the children of our country, I want young people on college campuses all over this country to say, you know what, I am so excited because I am going to do some of the most important work in this country. I'm going to become a teacher and I'm going to earn a living salary. And when we talk about education, I want every kid in Nevada and in Vermont, regardless of the income of his or her family, to understand that if that child studies hard and does well in school, that regardless of his or her income, that young person will be able to get a higher education. Four years ago, when I was here in Nevada, I talked about making public colleges and universities tuition-free. And people said, Bernie, that is such a radical idea. Oh my God, it's inconceivable. What are you talking about? Well, guess what's happened over the last 4 years? In communities, in counties, in states all over this country, they are now making public colleges and universities tuition-free. We're going to do that in every state in this country. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. You want another radical idea? I don't want anybody collapsing in here. All right, here it is. 11 years ago, Congress, against my vote, decided to bail out the crooks on Wall Street who destroyed this economy. They're crooks. What they were involved in is illegal behavior, but, you know, they're rich, they're powerful, they own the Congress. Of course, they get bailed out. And just a couple of years ago, Congress voted a $1 trillion tax break for the top 1% and large profitable corporations. Well, it seems to me, if we can give huge amounts of money to the rich and the powerful, we can cancel all student debt in this country. And we do it we pay for it. We do it through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. That's what we do. And there's another issue where we have been making some progress, and it's an issue that we have got to think outside of the box on. 4 years ago, I came to Nevada and I said, but everybody, with the establishment, my opponents, said, oh, Bernie, you're too radical, it's too extreme, nobody in America agrees with you. I said that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And I said something else incredibly radical. You ready for another radical statement? That maybe the United States of America, the wealthiest country on earth, just might be able to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all of our people as a right, not a privilege. Well, as you may have noticed, I get criticized a little bit for that principle. And it's not just Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and it's not just the healthcare industry and the drug companies. It's many of the establishment Democrats who want to preserve the status quo and, tinker around the edges a little bit with it. But here is the status quo that some of my Democratic opponents want to maintain, what the healthcare industry wants to maintain, what Trump wants to maintain. Here it is. Number one, we are spending as a nation twice as much per person as the people of other major countries. You got that? Twice as much. In Canada, they spend about $5,500. We're spending $11,000 per person, every man, woman, and child in this country. Now, if you're going to spend $11,000 per person, you should have a gold-plated healthcare system. People should live to 200 years, But it turns out that despite spending so much on healthcare, our system is far inferior to many other systems around the world. So here is the reality. Today in America, 87 million people are either uninsured or underinsured. You know what underinsured is? You do. That means people are have high deductibles, they have high copayments, they cannot afford the out-of-pocket expenses that they need. Today in America, 30,000 people die. You know why they die? Because they don't have insurance and they don't get to the doctor when they should. And by the time they walk into the doctor's office, it is often too late. And this is, when you talk about a dysfunctional and cruel system, I want you to hear this one. Last year, some 500,000 Americans went bankrupt because of medically related illnesses. You got that? They went bankrupt because of medically related debt. They got sick. And I want you to think about this one. Somebody goes to the doctor's office. Doctor says, I have bad news for you. You got cancer. We're going to have to figure out how to treat it. You're in a shock. What doctor do I go to? What hospital do I go to? What kind of treatment do I get? How am I going to get my feet back on the ground? How do I get well? And yet in the midst of having to deal with all of that shock, people in this country have to say, oh my God, if I'm going to run up a medical bill of $100,000 or $50,000 when I got $5,000 in the bank, when I'm making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, how am I supposed to pay a $50,000 or $100,000 bill? And the answer is they can't. And the answer is they go bankrupt, or the alternative is their credit score gets shot because they are late in paying their bills. It's happening all over this country. So take a deep breath and ask about a system which forces people to go bankrupt for what crime? What did they do? Did they make a bad investment? Did they blow their money on a big house? They got sick. This is America. You should not go bankrupt because you're diagnosed with a serious illness. So what does Medicare for all mean? What does it mean? What it means is right now you have a Medicare program, which is a good program. We're going to make it a better program. We are going to expand Medicare to cover hearing aids, to cover dental care, to cover eyeglasses. Because the last that I heard, those are health care needs. And I'll tell you what else we do, which is enormously consequential. Right now, throughout this country, a lot of older people and people with disabilities are forced out of the homes that they would like to stay in into a nursing home. Under our Medicare for All plan, home health care is covered. And because we are going to end the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. And, all right, you're going to get me going on the pharmaceutical industry. I didn't want to do it. You're making me do it. All right, so we'll spend a few minutes on our good friends in the drug companies. You know, this country is rampant with corporate greed. I mean, these guys stay up nights figuring out how much more billions of dollars they can make. We understand greed. But there's another element of the drug companies, and it's not just greed, it is literal corruption. Corruption, illegal behavior. I'll give you an example of what I mean. A number of months ago, I took a group of diabetics from the Midwest over the Canadian border to buy insulin. Anybody here dealing with diabetes? Okay. We bought insulin, which is the oxygen. That's just what people with diabetes need to stay alive. You know what the differential in price for the same insulin manufactured by the same company was? Do you know, ma'am, what the difference was? What was it? It went from 50 in this country to 300. Do you know what the difference in price in Canada from the United States was? Who knows? It was 10 to 1. We bought the same product you're using for 1/10 of the price that you're paying here in the United States. Okay? And the reason for that, and it's not just insulin. You name the drug. Virtually every drug. And Canada's prices are not the cheapest in the world. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. You want to hear a dysfunctional healthcare system? You're sick. You go to the doctor. The doctor says, well, Mary, you know, this is your problem. I'm writing out a prescription for you. 1 out of 5 people in this country cannot afford to fill the prescription their doctors are writing because the prices are so high. Okay? Meanwhile, after all of the price fixing and the collusion, after all of that, the 6 major drug companies last year made $69 billion in profit. You got it? Over the last 20 years, the drug companies alone spent $4 billion on lobbying and campaign contributions so that they could end up being able to charge you any price they want for any drug you use. Well, we got some bad news for the pharmaceutical industry. This president will not accept the collusion and the price fixing. We are going to take them on. And under Medicare for All, because we're going to lower drug prices in this country, nobody in America will pay more than $200 a year for the prescription drugs they need. Now, briefly on Medicare for all we are doing is expanding Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, eyeglasses, home health care. Right now, to be eligible for Medicare, you got to be 65. First year, we lower it to 55, then 45, then 35. 4 years, everybody is in. Now, I am criticized. How are you going to pay for it, Bernie? Oh, my word. How are you going to do it? We're so worried about the working people of this country, and you are just going to do terrible things to them. Okay. So the first question is, for all those who want to maintain the status quo, gee, how are we paying for it right now? I guess nobody here has to pay any premiums, right? It's all free for you, right? And poor Bernie comes along and wants to raise all these things. All right, how do you pay for it right now? This is how you're paying for it. Today, the median family in our economy makes about $60,000 a year, okay? That's the family right in the middle of the American economy. That family today is paying $12,000 a year for health care. That means premiums, that means copayments, that means out-of-pocket expenses, that means prescription. In totality, $12,000 a year. 20% of the income of the family in the middle of the American economy. That seems to me to be a heck of a lot of money for that family to be paying for health care. So what we do, among other things, what we do is say, okay, anyone who tells you that health care is free is not telling you the truth. It's expensive. We all know that. So what we say is, instead of having that average family pay 20% of their income for health care, what we do is get rid of, now I want you to follow me here, premiums are gone for you and your employer, gone. See, because I look at it as premiums are a tax that go to the insurance company. All right, gone. Co-payments, gone. Deductibles, one of the most insane concepts in the history of the world, gone. Out-of-pocket expenses, gone. Limit to how much you can spend on prescription drugs, $200 a year, okay? Now, is that all you're gonna get all that for free? You're not. So one of the approaches that we have, which impacts workers, is we say to that family, say that average family, $60,000 a year, you're gonna be paying 4% of your income in taxes with an exemption of the first $29,000 of income. That means you're paying 4% on $31,000 a year, which is $1,200 a year for comprehensive health care. Which, from where I come from, is a pretty good deal and a hell of a lot better than the $12,000 a year that is currently being paid by that average family. So next time you hear how we're going to pay for it, ask them how they're going to pay for it, and we're going to end middle-class families having to pay 20% of their income for health care. I want to touch on another issue which is so consequential, not only for Nevada, where it is, or for Vermont, or for America, but for the entire world. And here's the story. Tragically, we have a president of the United States who thinks that climate change is a hoax. When anybody tells you that climate change is not real, and we don't have to do anything about it, they are turning their backs on their own kids and on future generations in an incredibly irresponsible way. So what I want to tell you is that what the scientists are now saying is they have underestimated the degree and speed in which climate change is ravaging our country and, in fact, the entire planet. That's what they are saying. And what they are saying is, if we do not move very aggressively in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy within the next 8 or 9 years, the damage that will happen to our country and to the world will be irreparable. And the crisis will only get worse and worse and worse. What we are looking at right now is the melting of the polar ice caps and significant rising of sea levels, which will flood major cities in our country and around the world. What you're looking at is drought, which right now, as we speak, is leaving Australia right now burning, which God knows, you all know what's been happening in California and in Nevada as well, the terrible fires we're seeing on our own West Coast. What we're seeing is flooding, which will impact agriculture in our country because farmers can't grow food when their fields are underwater. What you're going to see is the spread of disease because the bacteria that thrives on warm weather will be able to expand when they're not killed in cold weather. And we're seeing that already around the world. What we will also see, according to the United Nations, is hundreds of millions of people in years to come who are climate refugees. That means they can no longer stay in their communities because there's no land to grow crops, no water to drink, and they're going to be migrating, causing great international conflict. What you're seeing is the acidification of the ocean and fish dying. So the people who get their protein from fish will no longer be able to do that. We have a planetary crisis here. And anyone who tells you that that is not the case is just not telling you the truth. This is not stuff that I came up with. All I'm doing is listening to the scientists. And I'm proud to tell you that in listening to the scientists, we have brought forth the most comprehensive climate change plan ever brought forth by any candidate for President of the United States. It is based on the concept of the Green New Deal, and what it will do is tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of our planet and the well-being of our kids and future generations. Now, in the midst of all of this frightening stuff about climate change, there is some good news. And the good news is that under our proposal, we can create up to 20 million good-paying jobs transforming our energy system. And the other point that I want to make on this is I wish I could tell you that this is just an American issue. It is obviously not. This is a global issue. And as President of the United States, what I will do is do everything possible to bring the people of the world together and say, you know what? Maybe instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. Thank you. Thank you. Donald Trump thinks he's going to win this election if he is not found guilty in the impeachment trial. But if he is still standing, he thinks he's going to win the election by dividing the American people up. That's what demagogues always do. Study history. Trump didn't invent this. It's what went on in Europe. It goes on all over the world. You take a minority, you get everybody to try to hate them and all that stuff. And one of the upsetting things, what's going on right now from the White House, is the demonization of undocumented people in this country. So let me be very clear and just say this. We're going to end the hatred. We're going to end the demonization. We are finally going to do what the American people want, and that is pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. We are going to end a border policy where federal agents are snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. And on day one, through executive order, we are going to end all of the racist executive orders promulgated by Trump. And that means that on day one, we will reestablish legal protection for the 1.8 million young people in the DACA program. We are also going to deal with a racist and broken criminal justice system. We will invest in our young people in jobs and education, not build more jails and more incarceration. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers in this country. We are going to end cash bail. Because today, 400,000 people are behind bars, not having been convicted of anything, but they can't afford the $500 for bail. That's wrong. And we are going to end, finally, the so-called war on drugs. We're going to legalize marijuana in every state in this country. We're going to expunge the records of those who were arrested for possession of marijuana. All of us are horrified. It seems every week, every 2 weeks, we turn on the TV, we read the papers, and there's another mass shooting in this country. And I do not have to go into any detail in Nevada, where you have experienced perhaps the worst of it. All that I will say is that under a Bernie Sanders administration, the NRA will not be determining gun policy. It will be the people of this country. We're going to have universal expanded background checks. We're going to end the gun show loophole. We're going to end the so-called straw man provision. And we're going to do what the American people now want us to do, gun owners, non-gun owners. We're going to end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. I am, as you know, United States Senator. And I'm on the floor of the Senate, and I hear a lot of speeches. God, are some of them boring. All right, but that's another story. But some of the speeches really get to me when you have some of my conservative colleagues say, we are conservatives, we believe in small government, we believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. Well, if they believe that, then they have got to understand that it is women in this country who should control their own bodies, not the government. And here's my promise to you. I will never nominate anybody to the U.S. Supreme Court who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. Look, we live, and I've just, touched on some of the issues that are on people's minds. I know there are many others. But we live in a very challenging time, and it's not just Trump. It is Trump, but it's more than Trump. And what our campaign is about, and we say this all of the time, is us, not me. What does that mean? What it means is that we are all in this together. that we reject the Trump ideology, which says that human life is about lying, cheating, and stealing and making as much money as you can while you step on everybody else. That's kind of an ideology, not just of Trump, but of parts of the corporate elite today. You know, whether it's the drug companies who were selling opioids with full knowledge that it was addictive and killing people. You know, whether it was the tobacco industry that sells the product that's killing people, killed my father, you know, and so forth and so on. I mean, you got that greed and says, in their ideology, look, what human life is about is we're all at war against each other. I gotta lie to you, I gotta steal from you, I gotta step on you, because I need more and more. Because $10 billion, hey, that ain't enough for me. I need $20 billion. I need more tax breaks. I need more deregulation so I can pollute your water and your air and kids get sick. I need more and more and more. And to hell with everybody else. And our view is a very different view, which is shared, I think, by the majority of the American people. And that is, we are in it together in the sense that if we work together, we can create a nation in which all of us do well, which all of us have health care and education and clean water and clean air. And the other part of us, not me, is something you don't see on television, and you're not going to hear it in the Congress, and you'll never see it on television. And that is an understanding of power structure in America. So I'm going to tell you what no other candidate for president will. And that is that no president, no matter how honest and well-intentioned he or she may be, no president can do it alone. Because when you are taking on the power of Wall Street, and you're taking on the power of the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex and the whole 1%, you are taking on people who have unbelievable amounts of money. They control the economy. They own the media. Those are the people you're taking on. And anybody who comes before you running for president, hey, vote for me, I'm going to do it all. That ain't the case. The only way, as all of you know who have studied history, the only way that real change takes place is from the bottom on up, never the top on down. So us, not me, means that I will do everything I can. Being president's a pretty powerful position, but I can't do it all. We need millions of people to stand up for justice, to stand up for economic justice, for racial justice, for social justice, for environmental justice. And when we do that, and when you have a president who is not only commander-in-chief of the military, but organizer-in-chief, when we stand together by the millions, then we can transform this country and create a government and an economy that works for every man, woman, and child, not just the 1%. So thank you all very much. Thank you. Carson City, thank you. All right, we have time for some questions or comments, and I wanted to start with a gentleman that I met a few months ago. John, why don't you tell people your name, get them a mic.
Thank you, Bernie. Because of your support, Senators Cortez, Masta, and Jackie Rosen got involved and straightened out my bills with TRICARE. And I was retroactively reinstated, and I only had to pay the $29.50 a month from when they canceled my insurance without my knowledge. So thank you for rescuing me And I have this to give you. This. This is my leather flight jacket that I earned in Naval Air Crew Candidate School exactly 25 years ago. In December '84, I graduated, I think it was January 11th, 1985. So it's exactly 25 years when I went through the doorsteps of that school where they just recently had a tragedy. They send all the enlisted and officers for flight training there, and I became a search and rescue corpsman. And I served at NAS Lemoore Search and Rescue and saved dozens of lives while stationed there. And as a corpsman, in 20 years of service, I saved many more in my routine jobs and things like this. I want you to have that. That's my original issue flight jacket and a flight patch.
Well, let me say this. John, I so much appreciate this. I am not going to take it because it's a beautiful jacket. It's a jacket that you earned, and I want you to keep it. But the last time I saw you, I will take that. That I will take.
My flight patch.
Okay. The last time I saw John, it was not a good circumstance. We had a brief conversation. And I'm so happy that working with your senators in our office, we were able to rectify your situation. Let me just say this, not just to John. As a nation, we can disagree about a war. We can disagree about foreign policy. But when brave people like John put their lives on the line to defend our country, when they come home, they will receive the best quality health care that this country can provide them. And they will not have to go deeply in debt or be harassed by bill collectors for some stupid bureaucratic reason. So, John, thank you so much. Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, ma'am, right here. Yep, we get you.
Hi, I have, you were talking about the federal governments with the Native Americans.
Yes. Hold on, Michael, closer.
I have a son-in-law and his family that are Native American down in San Diego. This travesty has been going on for a long time with people and the Native Americans that have tribes and are on reservations, and their families live on the reservations and are being kicked off the reservations after they have casinos and they are building casinos. And the families, many of the elders are passing away with not knowing. Their children don't even know their heritage anymore, all because of the greed. What can you help us with for those families?
We can do a lot, and we will do a lot. Almost every community that I go to that has a Native American population, I meet with tribal leaders. So this is an issue that we feel strongly about from a moral perspective. What has happened to the Native American people, the lies that have been told to them, the treaties that have been broken, the fact on sacred land, their sacred land all over the country, you have large corporations moving in, poisoning the water, excavating minerals, and so forth and so on. The fact that right now you have probably as much poverty in the Native American community as any community in this country. You got a lot of addiction going on, inadequate education. All right, and the answer is we will finally give the Native American people the respect and dignity to which they are entitled. And as I said a moment ago, we have a lot to learn from the Native American people and their history and their culture. And one of the things they have always understood, from as far back as I think we can learn, is that as human beings, we are part of nature. And we cannot simply destroy nature and think that humanity will benefit from that. They do not destroy. You don't destroy your source of food. You don't wipe out the buffalo if you're dependent upon that for food. You don't poison the water if you need water to drink. That's what they have understood. And that when you look at your policy, what you do, you look at it over a long period of time, not just the end of the quarter and the profits that you make. So we as a nation have a lot to learn from the Native American people, their understanding about sustainability and their relationship to nature. So we are going to do everything we can to improve life for the Native American people, to undo the damage that was done, and to use their culture and their history to help improve life for all Americans. Yes, woman right here. Yeah, ma'am, there's a microphone right by your side. Hold that mic close to you.
Closer, like that?
That's it.
Okay. We read about all these people shot by police officers, be they disabled, people of color, for stupid reasons. I would like citizen oversight of the police. What do you think of that?
I absolutely agree with you. And let me answer it in two ways, and you're right. It happens all over the country. Answer it in a couple of ways. Number one, in our criminal justice program, our Attorney General will investigate all instances of where people are killed while in police custody. That's number one. So that'll be investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice. Second of all, here is the truth, and that is that I think most police officers around the country are trying to do their best under very difficult circumstances. Not easy being a cop. But often our police officers do not have the training they need to deal with difficult circumstances. I mean, if you're around somebody who is acting out in a kind of strange way and you're afraid that person may have a weapon, what do? Well, you need training in order to deal with that. And I think too often our officers have been trained to use lethal force as a first response rather than as a last response. So one of the things that we will do, police departments are run by local communities, not by the federal government, but we can have model programs and provide incentives for better training for our police officers in terms of how you deal with difficult circumstances. Okay. See a woman right behind you. Yeah, woman in the pink, yeah.
One of my big concerns...
Hold that mic a little bit closer, please.
A great concern of mine is our foreign policy. I am so tired of the killing that goes on with our tax dollars, the coups in foreign countries, the death squads that we have supported. And I want someone to make me proud of my country again. I no longer want to be ashamed of my country. And war is not green.
Thank you. We could discuss that one for a very long time, but let me just say this. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I happen to believe that the United States must stand for democracy and human rights all over the world. And I find it appalling that we have a president who seems to gravitate to authoritarian leaders, whether it is Putin, whether it is Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, and many others, people who are murderers, people who are authoritarians, and at the same time seems to get into battles every other day with our long-standing democratic allies. All right, that's issue number one. We have got to be, as you indicated, a beacon of hope for the people in Hong Kong, for people all over the world who believe in democracy and human rights. Number two, we are now spending $750 billion a year on the military. And by the way, the Pentagon is the only major agency of government that has not gone through an independent audit. But what we do know, massive cost overruns, massive corruption. Almost every defense contractor has been found guilty of price fixing or some other form of collusion. We are now spending more than the 10 next nations combined on military spending. So we're going to take a very hard look at the defense budget. Point number three, the so-called war on terror has cost us trillions of dollars. And there's a piece today, I think it was in the Washington Post, which talked about they got some information that we were lied to over and over again regarding the war in Afghanistan. We were told that things are going well. Things are not going well. It is an incredibly corrupt nation. All right, so we are going to end endless war. This stuff is complicated, and I don't mean to say that you snap your finger and everything wonderful happens. It doesn't. Tough stuff. But we are going to end endless wars, which cost us human lives, American soldiers, people in the region. And we're going to do our best to stand up for democracy and human rights. So that's my pledge to you. Okay. Yeah, gentleman right here.
Hello. My name is Nick Shepak. I'm a social worker with the Public Defender's Office. Thank you. But I'm fairly confident on your approach to that. My main concern and what's keeping me up at night now is my father is a postal carrier for the United States Postal Service. He works up at the lake. All their routes are rated for a certain amount of hours. His is about 9. Due to the amount of packages, mostly from Amazon, he's working 14, 15 hours a day, getting paid for 9. He's a union member. I'm concerned, sure, that he's not being compensated for his work, but he's 65. He needs 2 years until he can make enough money to retire, and I'm concerned that under the weight of these packages and these long days, he will not be able to enjoy any of his retirement.
Okay. As it happens, I'm sorry, your first name is? Nick. Happens, Nick, the Postal Service is an issue I have actually been involved with for a number of years. We work very closely with the National Association of Letter Carriers, your father's union. We just got the endorsement in New Hampshire, the American Postal Union Workers. And the overview here, and by the way, we played a very important role in preventing the closing of 15,000 rural post offices all over this country. You may be familiar with it, some years ago. Look, what these guys want to do, what Trump and his friends want to do now, what they've always wanted to do, they want to privatize the Postal Service, okay? And they want to do everything they can to have low wages so that there's a two-tier system. You want to work for the Postal Service, you'll be making less than previous generations out there. They want to shut down rural post offices. So we will do everything that we can to improve the Postal Service, all right? And by the way, as a result of policy, as you know, right now, mail delivery is slower than it used to be. That was policy, which we worked very hard against. And I'll tell you something else now that you're on the Postal Service. One of the ugliest things that takes place, and it exists big time in your state, but all over this country, are payday lenders, right? Who are charging people unbelievable usurious rates. They pick on the poorest people who have no credit. What we want to do is investigate the concept of postal banking. Do you know what that means? That means right now, if you're a bank, you don't give a damn about somebody who has a lot of money because you can't make profits from somebody else who have a lot of money. So you leave those people desperate, having to go to payday lenders. What we want to do is establish in post offices all over this country the ability of people to deposit small amounts of money, to make withdrawals, to get loans at a reasonable price, and not this disgusting usury that we're seeing right now. So this is an issue we have worked on. We will do everything possible to protect your father and the other people who are working for our Postal Service. Okay, let's see. I see a hand right over there. Yes, gentleman right here.
First, hi Bernie, this is really cool.
Hold that mic close to your mouth.
Hi Bernie, this is really cool.
Hey.
What do you think about the food industry? They put so much in the ingredients list that's
Good.
just not food, period.
Yep.
And the second ingredient's corn syrup in everything. I
Okay,
can't even buy raw
okay.
cocoa to sweeten
Look.
my coffee because it's got corn syrup.
The food industry is what he is talking about. You raise a very important issue. And, bottom line is people have a right to eat what you want. That's your right. But on the other hand, I think the government can play a stronger role in educating people about the quality or lack of quality in food. In Vermont, I have long supported our organic. We got somebody from Vermont, all right. There aren't many of us, but we get around the country a little bit. We have supported organic agriculture and good quality agriculture. When we talk about food also, you tie it to climate change, it makes a lot of sense for the food that we eat to be grown as locally as it possibly can. And we're working on ideas like that. We have in Vermont schools and hospitals that buy their food to a large degree from local farmers, which I think is a great thing. All right, but you raise another issue, and that is you have an industry which sells food to kids, which often has a lot of sugar in it, okay? And we have an obesity crisis in this country. So when we talk about healthcare, obviously we mean that, people have the right to go to a doctor whenever they can, whenever they need to, regardless of income. That's Medicare for all. But we have to do a better job in disease prevention. Disease prevention. We want to keep people healthy. Okay? And that means, creating lifestyles or just educating people about lifestyles which are healthy. Last point I would make on that issue. It is very expensive to be poor. Okay? I mean, it is poor people. I use the example of payday lenders. If you're rich, you ain't going to pay 50 or 100% interest rates on borrowing money. All right? If you have your middle class, you can go to a grocery store and buy, the food you eat at a reasonable price. If you're poor, and you don't have a car, you may buy it at the local store where the food is not particularly good and the prices are very, very high. So thank you for that point. But the goal here is an emphasis on disease prevention, educating people on the best ways that we can stay healthy. And that's something I think our Surgeon General will be doing big time. Okay, maybe a couple of more questions. All right, yeah, right here. Stand up.
Hi, I'm Daisy. I read the other day that the majority of young people in the Gen Z generation are completely distrustworthy of the entire system of capitalism. And we have a lot of very innovative young people in the world today. And I was just wondering what you plan to do to support young people inventing a new system
Great.
together.
Well, let me answer that in a couple of ways. The good news is that our younger generation is the most progressive generation, perhaps in American history. They really are. And we know how progressive they are because you got Republican governors all over this country who are trying to prevent them from voting. So that's the proof in the pudding. The The bad news is, by the way, in terms of the younger generation, they do not vote in anywhere near the numbers that they should. So what we believe, and I think the facts are clear, if young people in this country, say people under 30, voted at the same level as people over 65, we would transform this country. That's number one. Number two, we are doing everything we can to reach out to young people and getting them involved in the political process with some success. We're going to try, one of the, I think, heroines of youth in this country is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And we don't have it locked down now because, you know, she's involved in the impeachment stuff, but we want to bring her here to Nevada to start talking to the young people. And the third point is that, as you indicated, it is young people who are leading the effort in terms of climate change, not only in America, but around the world. It is young people who have led the effort in terms of gun safety legislation. And you're right. Young people are looking at this world and saying, you know what? We want to make sure that our kids and our grandchildren will have a decent standard of living and a planet that is healthy and habitable. They're helping to lead all of that stuff. So the answer to your question is yes. I mean, I think there's an incredible amount of energy and intelligence among young people, which have got to be incorporated into public policy. So it's not just a bunch of old white guys who are going to make the decisions. We're going to be reaching out. Well, with one exception, there'll be one old white guy, but that's all. All right, maybe a couple of more questions. All right, we got a question right here. We got a mic coming? Okay.
Does your platform have a plan for alternative minimum tax for corporations because half of them pay nothing?
Oh, I would say yes. Look, when we talk about a government controlled by the wealthy and the powerful, what it means is that we have not raised the minimum wage, federal minimum wage, in over 10 years. But we have managed to give massive tax breaks to billionaires and to large corporations, okay? That's called a government dominated by the wealthy and the powerful. And what you have right now is a tax system, listen to this, where in the midst of massive income and wealth inequality, the effective tax rate of the very wealthiest people in this country is lower than the effective tax rate of somebody in the middle class. How's that? So if you are a multi-billionaire, your effective tax rate is lower than somebody in the middle class. If you are, anybody here know how much Amazon paid last year in federal income tax? All right. That's called a corrupt political system. You got it? And by the way, I'm very proud to tell you, when we talk about this stuff, is I think we are the only campaign to have received no contributions from billionaires. And I'm really proud of this, I really am. We have, as of today, I think, give or take a little, we have received some 4.2 million contributions. Got that? We have received them from something like 1.2 million separate Americans. The average contribution is $18. And what we have accomplished in terms of the number of contributions and the number of individuals is more than any candidate in the history of the United States of America. Now, one of my Democratic opponents has received contributions, I believe, from 44 billionaires. Another candidate is busy running around the country, going to wealthy people's homes, raising a whole lot of money. And what they will tell you is, it doesn't matter. They will not influence me. Yeah, we're receiving millions and millions of dollars from the rich and the powerful, but it will not influence me. Duh. Why do you think the rich and the powerful make these campaign contributions? All right, they may be greedy, but they are not stupid. They know exactly what they are doing. So I'm really proud to tell you that actually more uniquely than any campaign in the history, not just right now, the history of this country, this is a campaign that is dependent upon the working class of this country, that stands with the working class of this country, and will develop policies which protect the working class of this country. So, all right, I think we're going to have to move on. And I just want to thank all of you for being here. I don't have to tell anybody in this room that Nevada plays an outsized role in the Democratic primary process. You're number 3 up there. We think we have an excellent chance to win here in Nevada. And with your help, if you're prepared to volunteer for our campaign, knock on doors, make phone calls, just reach out to your friends. Okay? You know, you have a caucus here. Make sure that you and your friends come to the caucus. If you do that, we're going to win here in Nevada. I think we've got an excellent chance in Iowa and New Hampshire. We win these 3 states. We're on a path toward victory and transforming this country. Thank you all very much.